CBSE Board, Class 11, History, Chapter 3, Part 15, Audio by Rini Matthew. The word humanities has got an origin. The Latin word humanitas, from which humanities got derived, was used many centuries ago, especially by the Roman lawyer and essayist Cicero. He was a contemporary or a person who lived during the time of Julius Caesar, and this word actually meant culture. It was not at all connected with any religion. It emphasized the skills which were developed by individual through discussion and debate. When a person gets engaged in discussion and debate, there are some skills that a person will always develop. And Cicero always insisted on these skills, and he was a person who lived during the time of Julius Caesar. Now we need to look at the source box. It is about a person called Giovanni Pico della Mirandola. Now what about this person? He was a humanist who lived in Florence. He wrote on the importance of debate, because just now I told you that debate and discussion will enhance the skill of a person, right? How does it enhance? How do you start developing your skills, especially when you take part in discussion and debate? That is what we're going to see right now. So, Pico della Mirandola was a person who insisted on the importance of debate in a work known as On the Dignity of Man. So he said that for philosophers like Plato and Aristotle, it was sure that the attainment of knowledge of truth, when you really have to go to understand the importance of knowledge of truth, which is something which the philosophers actually searched for. Everybody wanted to find out the ultimate truth and they started seeking for it. Nothing is better than to attend as often as possible the exercise of debate. So when you want to actually understand the meaning of truth and understand what is the meaning of ultimate truth, it is always possible when a person gets engaged in debate. And he says that the energy of the body is always enhanced. It is strengthened by gymnastic exercise. So beyond doubt, when you want to understand the meaning of truth, when you want to wrestle with letters, when you want to wrestle with thoughts, when you want to give energy to your mind, what do? Because to the body, if you want to give energy, you do exercise. It becomes more stronger and vigorous, means energetic, only when you take part in debates. So that was the kind of advice given by Pico della Mirandola. Okay, so as the exercise is to the body, the skill which is developed through discussion and debate, especially through debate, is to the mind, which makes it very strengthening, and it is stronger and it gets more vigorous. Okay, so now these kind of ideas were really revolutionary, which attracted attention in many other universities, especially in the university in Petrarch's own hometown of Florence. We saw the importance of Petrarch and his development and all these things in the previous slides. So in his own hometown, Florence, these kind of ideas were always encouraged. Now towards the end of the 13th century, nobody was so particular about Florence. We saw that Florence and Venice were flourishing cities where trade also happened. And this city did not have much mark in trade. It was not a center till then. Only after 13th century it became a center of trade or of learning. But after 15th century, everything just changed dramatically. It just took a big shift and a turn. After what? The 13th century. So all these centuries are very important, especially as far as timeline is concerned. And this is the picture of Petrarch. Okay. Now, the picture of Petrarch was given in a previous slide. Sorry, this is a picture of Dante Alighieri. Okay. Now, we saw that in the 13th century only Florence started developing, especially as a center of trade and of learning. And it changed very much. It changed overtly and dramatically only in the 15th century. Now, we can see that Dante Alighieri, this particular person, the city became known for its wealth of knowledge and trade, especially because of Dante Alighieri, because of his findings and because of his resources and everything. And he was a person who wrote on religious themes. He was a person who gave importance to a lot of religious themes. Who? Dante. Do you know who this person is? Giotto. He's an artist who is well known for painting lifelike portraits, because it was not easy to paint portraits of kings and queens and emperors and special people, right? So Giotto was very famous for doing lifelike portraits, and it was totally different from the stiff figures which were done by the earlier artists. Earlier artists, they will make the person sit in front of them and they will just paint stiff figures. But Giotto did not do like that. He of course did lifelike portraits, but that was totally different from the stiff figures which was used by the earlier artists. It looked very lifelike. The eyes and the expression, everything looked very lifelike. Then we can say that that is how this particular city, Florence, started developing as the most exciting intellectual city in Italy. It became a center of artistic creativity, because so many people started working. Dante was there, Giotto was there, so many people started exploring different things, and it actually showed its prominence. It started developing since then. Now we need to look at the term Renaissance man. It is very important. It is often used to describe a person with many interests and skills, and you should understand that Renaissance was a period which allowed the development of these kind of interests and skills. People till then did not speak about their interest, about their skills, especially about architecture, art and all that. People were much into logical reasoning. More than that, they were into pagan beliefs. But now, a person who has got a lot of architectural, artistic skills and everything, they were given much importance as a Renaissance man. Many people started developing themselves and they became very well known. Everybody was able to look into their skills and they were able to expound their skills also. You could see that people had a scholar in them, a diplomat, theologian, artist. So many people were a combination of all these things. A scholar, a diplomat, a theologian, artist, everything combined in one. That was the case with people themselves. Instead of any other person coming and telling you that you're good in something, it is always essential as a human being to understand yourself, understand what you're good in. It applies the other way around also. Suppose somebody comes and tells you that you're not good in something, but you know what your capacity is, then you should be able to have a self-confidence telling, no, I am good in this thing. Okay, so it is something to do with self-confidence and determination and to know about yourself. Now, what is this humanist view of history? What was humanism? How is it so important? Now, humanists, they always thought that they were restoring true civilization. They were always on the lookout of truth, especially after centuries of darkness. They said that the previous centuries were filled with darkness and now they wanted to bring in some kind of restoration. They wanted to bring in truth in the civilization. And they also believed that a dark age had set in after the collapse of the Roman Empire. I told you that for the people, Roman Empire was everything for them. Before that, the Greeks came, but after that, Romans flourished. They had their architecture, their art, everything was there. So now, after the collapse of the Roman Empire, they believed that some kind of darkness, some kind of ill omen, right? All these things, it crept in and people were not able to discover themselves. So humanists always thought that they were going to restore true civilization. So after that, the scholars, they started assuming a new age. Without any question, unquestioningly, they started assuming a new age. And that began in Europe from the 14th century. And they were so happy to have it in Rome, the humanist, the new age, especially from the 14th century. Okay? So now we have got this period known as the Middle Ages or the medieval period, very important. It was used for the millennium, 1,000 years after the fall of Roman Empire. And you should remember that so many things happened during this period, especially during the Middle Ages and the Middle period. The flourishing of art, the flourishing of history, the flourishing of sociology, everything took place, architecture also. So during the Middle Ages, what happened? People argued that the church had complete control over every affair of a man, whether it is personal or public or spiritual. they always had a great control, especially on the learning of Greeks and Romans, which had blotted out. Because people had a lot of learning from Greeks and Romans, do you remember that? So now what happened is that they had complete control over the men's mind, especially the church, because they knew that Greeks and Romans did not have any influence now. Okay. The humanists started using the word modern for the period from the 15th century. So from the 15th century, humanists, or even you can say that especially this particular category, started using this period. They started calling this period as modern. It's a very important point, because when you have essays under this particular period, you have to refer and write this point. Now we need to look at the periodization which was done by the humanist and by other scholars, like from which age to which age or which century is known as what. For example, this particular timeline is very important. Please study it. And 5th to 14th century is known as the Middle Ages. That is when we had the Roman civilization, the development, the flourishing of art and everything in Roman civilization. Then after their fall, after 14th century, you know that Roman civilization fell. It had a great collapse. 5th to 9th century, we have got the Dark Ages, when nobody was there to take care of it. The Roman cities were just left like that. 9th to 11th century, we have got the early Middle Ages. 11th to 14th century is the late Middle Ages, and from 15th century onwards, the humanists called it the Modern Age. Now this particular division was completely questioned by the historians. You should remember that historian is different from the humanist. Of course, they had some common point of interest, but historians were completely different from a humanist, and they had different perspectives and studies also. The historians started questioning this particular division. They said that we have to do more research on this kind of division. Before we divide the ages, we have to do more research. And we have to find out more about Europe before we segregate and divide the ages, because a lot will have to be found out before we finally conclude. And initially we can see that many scholars were reluctant. They didn't want to make sharp divisions. Even though the humanists made sharp divisions, the scholars did not want to make any increasingly sharp divisions between centuries, because they always felt that it was culturally vibrant. Even otherwise, all the ages were culturally vibrant. They gave importance to culture. So that is why scholars did not want to divide the ages into so many parts. So they can ask you a short question on why the scholars were reluctant to make sharp divisions between centuries. It is because they always felt that the culture was vibrant in all the ages. And the second reason is the scholars did not want to call any particular age as Dark Age. Humanists will call them as Dark Ages, but as a historian, as a scholar, nobody wanted to term any age as a Dark Age. It has got very dark connotation, right? Science and philosophy, the Arabs' contribution. We saw that everybody learned a lot of things from the Arabs. So now science and philosophy has got Arabs' contribution. And what is that? What are the main points of that? So many people, especially the monks and clergymen, what were their duties? They used to study a lot, especially from Greeks and Romans. Do you remember that? They had their own libraries, especially emperors took a lot of interest in setting up libraries where monks and so many people went and studied. So this continued even in the Middle Ages, where monks and clergymen went and studied about Greek and Roman scriptures. But they did not know how to make complete use of it. Throughout the Middle Ages they studied, especially when Romans were ruling. In the 14th century, many scholars began to read the translated works of two great people, two great philosophers, Plato and Aristotle. Plato and Aristotle has got a lot of influence on many branches of study, not just philosophy. So people started studying and reading the translated works. Earlier, you should remember that everybody was not able to read and write. They were not able to read Greek. So now translated works were there. So they were actually indebted to the scholars. From where did the translations come? It came from the Arabs, who carefully preserved. Like when you translate a particular book from one language to another, you have to make sure that the language, the meaning, and also the beauty of the meaning is preserved. If the beauty of the meaning is not preserved, then the purpose is not met. So ancient manuscripts were translated. So Plato was Aflatun, Aristotle Aristu in Arabic. So many people started translating, and these were the names given to them in Arabic. Now you can see a work which is given on the screen. We will see what it is. Some European scholars started reading Greek, especially in Arabic translation. They have to, of course, know Arabic, but still they started reading Greek. And Arabic translation was much more easier. It was easier to study the script. The Greeks translated works of Arabic and Persian scholars for further transmission to other Europeans. So they also started translating works of Arabic and Persian scholars. Instead of reading everything in Arabic, they started translating it into other languages also. These works were from natural science, mathematics, astronomy, medicine and chemistry. So all these branches are very important: natural science, mathematics, astronomy, medicine and chemistry. So we can see that many European scholars read Greek in Arabic translation. They also translated. So this particular work that you can see on the screen is known as Ptolemy's Almagest. Okay, this particular work. And it is a work on astronomy. It is written in Greek before 140 CE and later translated into Arabic. It was in Greek and it was translated into Arabic. It carries the Arabic definite article L. Those of you know Arabic will know it has got an article called L, which brings out the Arabic connection. So it is translated into Arabic and it has got that particular Arabic connection also. Alright?